The Manhattan skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Tribeca loft, where Olivia Harper, 36, stood finalizing details for the most ambitious event of my career. As the founder of Pinnacle Events, New York's premier event planning firm, I'd built a reputation for transforming the city's elite gatherings. Met Gala after-parties, Wall Street galas, Hampton's weddings into flawless spectacles. My invisible fingerprints were on every chandelier-lit ballroom, every curated menu, every guest list that read like a Forbes 100. But tonight, I wasn't planning for a client. I was packing for Florence, Italy, to orchestrate my mother-in-law Margaret's 65th birthday. A week-long extravaganza culminating in a dinner at a historic palazzo overlooking the Arno River. My husband, James Wentworth, 38, was already in Florence, and the weight of his family's expectations pressed heavier than my overstuffed suitcase. 5 years ago, I was just Olivia Harper, a self-made entrepreneur who'd clawed her way through NYU's business school on scholarships and late-night shifts at catering halls. My hustle paid off. Pinnacle Events became the go-to for Manhattan's elite, my knack for discretion and perfection. Earning whispers of miracle worker, that's how I met James. At a charity auction I'd orchestrated for the Guggenheim. Tall, with sharp cheekbones and a disarming laugh, he had the polished ease of old money. His family's Wentworth Group, a titan in real estate and private equity. "You're the genius behind this chaos," he'd said, gesturing to the swirling crowd. "My mother's planning a fundraiser. She needs someone like you." One job became many, and soon I was the Wentworths' trusted planner. The Wentworths were New York royalty, their wealth rooted in 19th century railroads and modernized through skyscrapers and hedge funds. Their Upper East Side townhouse, with its understated elegance, screamed privilege that didn't need to shout. Margaret, the matriarch, carried herself like a queen, her approval as rare as a flawless emerald. James, her eldest, was charming, driven, with a warmth that felt genuine. Our romance bloomed 6 months after I started working for them rooftop dinners, weekend escapes to Montauk, his curiosity about my world disarming me. But there were red flags. Margaret's pursed lips when James introduced me as his girlfriend, her subtle digs about my Brooklyn roots, the raised eyebrows from family friends. "You've done well," Margaret had said at our first formal dinner, her smile cold. Self-made is so gritty. I ignored the slights, swept up in James's promises of a shared future. He proposed after a year, on a yacht off Capri, and I said yes, despite the gnawing sense I'd never fit into his world. Our wedding, at their Hudson Valley estate, was a masterpiece. I planned myself vintage Veuve Clicquot, a string quartet, 300 guests from Manhattan's elite. Margaret micromanaged every detail, insisting on tradition over my modern touches. James mediated but never challenged her, a pattern that grew clearer after we married. Life as a Wentworth was a masterclass in subtle exclusion. Pinnacle Events handled their fundraisers, but Margaret and James's sister, Charlotte, nitpicked my choices. Flowers too bold, menus too ethnic, venues not iconic enough. At family dinners, my ideas were solicited, then ignored. My business success was a cute anecdote. "Olivia's so creative," Margaret would say, patting my hand like I was a child. "It's practically a hobby." James would shrug it off later, saying, "That's just mom. Don't take it personally." But it was personal. Charlotte's smirks, the uncle's backhanded compliments about my hustle, the cousin's stories of summers in Capri. I'd never joined, it all chipped away at me. The Florence event was my chance to prove myself. Margaret's 65th demanded perfection. a week of private museum tours, Tuscan vineyard lunches, and a gala dinner at Palazzo Corsini. I'd spent months leveraging every industry contact, securing exclusive venues, and designing a menu with a Michelin-starred chef. But cracks in the Wentworth facade appeared. Payments for vendors were delayed. James blamed their accountant's cash flow audits. I spotted financial statements on his iPad properties remortgaged. Investment funds bleeding. Credit lines stretched thin. The Wentworth fortune was fraying. But I used Pinnacle's credit line to cover deposits, telling myself James would explain after the event. Then, 2 weeks before our flight, I saw the text. James was in the shower, his phone buzzing on the nightstand. I never snooped, but the preview from Langley stopped me cold. Florence will be perfect. Have you told her yet? My hands trembled as I opened the thread. Claire Langley, James's college sweetheart, the poised heiress Margaret adored, had been texting him for months. Plans for Florence, mentions of our future, and a bombshell. The baby's due in March. She'll understand, right? I screenshotted everything, forwarded them to my phone, and deleted the evidence. My heart shattered, but I kept silent. Boarding the flight to Florence with James and his family, my professional mask intact. Florence was a dream: golden sunsets, cobblestone streets, the Arno's gentle flow. I'd arranged a convoy of vintage Fiats for the Wentworth entourage, Margaret and Richard, James's parents, Charlotte and her fiancé, Henry, James's brother, Thomas, with his wife, Elise, and 2 sets of aunts and uncles. The Hotel Savoy welcomed us with my curated touches Prosecco in the lounge, suites overlooking Piazza della Repubblica, bespoke itineraries for each guest. Margaret barely glanced at her schedule. "We'll wing it," she said, dismissing months of work. The family knows Florence. Our suite was stunning marble floors, a balcony with Duomo views, James's favorite Barolo on the nightstand, but he was distant, stepping out for business calls that lasted hours. The family's exclusion began immediately. At a welcome dinner in a Chianti trattoria, I was seated at the table's edge, far from James. Conversations swirled about past Wentworth trips to Italy. My absence, a silent underscore. When I mentioned the Uffizi tour I'd planned, Charlotte cut in. "Oh, we're doing a family gelato crawl instead. You'd be bored." Olivia, check the palazzo arrangements. Margaret nodded. "That's your strength, dear." The slights piled up. James vanished for breakfast meetings with Richard, leaving vague notes. The family slipped away for unannounced outings, villa visits. Private masses always forgetting to invite me. Whispers halted when I entered the hotel lobby. Dinner plans shifted to include old friends who eyed me like an exhibit. On day 3, I found James's briefcase open in our suite. Inside, draft divorce papers, dated weeks earlier, offering a meager settlement, emails about liquidating assets to stabilize the portfolio, and a handwritten note from Margaret. "Once Olivia's out, Claire can step in properly." I photographed everything, my anger cold and precise. The birthday dinner wasn't just a celebration, it was my planned exit. I didn't confront James. Instead, I documented bank transfers to offshore accounts, vendor emails showing delayed payments, texts between James and Claire. By day 5, I knew the dinner at Palazzo Corsini was my breaking point. Margaret's voice, overheard in the hotel's concierge lounge, confirmed it. 12 seats, not 13. Olivia won't stay. A family matter. The missing seat was no mistake. It was their coup de grace. A public humiliation to frame my departure as my choice. I arrived at the palazzo early, inspecting every detail. Crystal chandeliers, white orchids, a 5-course menu, The Arno sparkled below. Florence's skyline a perfect backdrop. I'd crafted a masterpiece, but it was my last for the Wentworths. Back at the hotel, I slipped into a sapphire Oscar de la Renta gown. My reflections steady. In the lobby, Margaret air-kissed me, her diamond earrings glinting. Lovely. Olivia. James's eyes flickered guilt. Perhaps, or calculation. At the palazzo, the terrace was breathtaking. Stars above, the Arno below. The family took their seats at a round table for 13. But mine was gone, no chair, no place card. Margaret's faux surprise was Oscar-worthy. A mix-up. Dear, James chuckled, his line rehearsed. Oops, we miscounted. Laughter rippled. Charlotte's smirk sharpest. I stood, the weight of their eyes heavy. But my voice was steel. Seems I'm not family. I turned, walking out, their laughter fading. In a nearby cafe, I sipped espresso and opened my event app. As the Wentworths toasted their triumph, I canceled everything palazzo, vineyard, yacht, villa reversing Pinnacle's deposits to my accounts. 30 minutes later, I returned, ready to watch their empire crack. The night air in Florence carried the scent of jasmine as I stood outside Palazzo Corsini, the Arno River shimmering under the stars. Inside, the Wentworth family was reeling from my silent strike. 30 minutes ago, I'd walked out of Margaret's 65th birthday dinner, where my seat was deliberately missing a calculated humiliation orchestrated by James, Margaret, and their clan. Their laughter at James's oops, we miscounted, had been the final straw. From a nearby cafe, I'd canceled every arrangement for their week-long celebration palazzo dinner, vineyard lunch, yacht excursion, Tuscan villa. Reversing Pinnacle events deposits back to my company's accounts. Now, as I re-entered the palazzo through a service door, my sapphire gown catching the light, I was ready to witness the unraveling of their carefully crafted facade. Inside, the terrace was chaos masquerading as elegance. The round table, set for 12 instead of 13, was littered with half-eaten plates of truffle risotto, the first course of my curated menu. Waiters hovered, their faces tense, as Giovanni, the palazzo's manager, spoke to Richard at the table's head. Margaret clutched her wineglass, her diamond earrings glinting with each sharp gesture. James was on his phone, his face pale, scrolling frantically. Charlotte whispered to Henry, her smirk gone, while Thomas and Elise exchanged nervous glances. The aunts and uncles, usually smug, looked lost, their champagne flutes abandoned. I lingered in the shadows near the kitchen entrance, a vantage point Giovanni had discreetly arranged. As an event planner, I'd worked with him on prior Manhattan client events in Florence. Professional loyalty ensured his cooperation. Earlier, I'd emailed him proof of my authority as the event coordinator, along with confirmation of payment reversals. The Palazzo's bill 25 fines. Zen for the dinner alone was now the Wentworth's problem. Giovanni showed Richard a tablet, likely the invoice, and Richard's voice rose, clipped and desperate. There must be a mistake. Our planner, Olivia, handled this. Giovanni shook his head, his tone apologetic but firm. Signora Harper canceled the contract. The deposit was returned to her company. We require immediate payment to continue service. Margaret's head snapped up, her voice icy. Canceled. That's absurd. Get her here. Now. My phone buzzed James, calling for the third time in 10 minutes. His texts had started 5 minutes after I left the cafe, escalating from annoyance. Olivia, where are you? This isn't funny to panic. The Palazzo says you canceled everything. Call me now. I'd ignored them. But now I answered, keeping my voice steady. Yes. James, what the hell are you doing? He hissed, stepping away from the table, his silhouette visible through the terrace doors. The vendors are calling, saying you canceled the entire week vineyard, yacht, villa. Mother's humiliated. Fix this. I leaned against the wall, the stone cool against my back. Fix what? James, the missing seat you planned? Or the divorce papers I found in your briefcase? Maybe the text from Claire about your baby due in March. Silence stretched, his breathing heavy. You thought I wouldn't find out. I continued, but I did. And I'm done being your prop. Olivia, please, he said, his voice cracking. You don't understand. The family's finances are delicate. This stunt could ruin us. Come back. We'll talk. I can explain, Claire. Everything. Explain to your mother. I said. She wrote the script for my exit. I just rewrote the ending. I hung up, texting Giovanni. Proceed. He approached the table again, this time addressing Margaret directly. Senora Wentworth, we need a new payment method. The original guarantee is void. Richard fumbled for his wallet, pulling out a credit card. But Giovanni shook his head. The amount exceeds your limit. Signore, perhaps another option. Margaret stood, her face flushed. This is outrageous. Do you know who we are? She reached for her purse, producing a pearl and diamond choker. Hold this as collateral until we sort this out. Giovanni hesitated, then accepted, his expression neutral but his eyes flickering with pity. The other diners Florence's elite. Invited for clout, whispered, their phones discreetly snapping photos. The Wentworth's humiliation was going viral in real time. Charlotte's voice cut through, shrill. This is Olivia's doing. She's sabotaging us, Thomas muttered. She wouldn't dare. But Elise's glance toward the shadows suggested she wasn't so sure. James returned to the table, his phone still in hand, and whispered to Margaret. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. A queen betrayed by her own court. The aunts and uncles began arguing, their voices overlapping, blaming the staff. The incompetent planner. Each other. Richard's face was beet red, his gestures frantic as he called their accountant. I stepped back, my work done. But I wasn't finished. In the cafe, I'd emailed Daniel Kessler, a rival real estate mogul who'd clashed with the Wentworths over a midtown development deal. I'd met him at a Pinnacle event, where he'd praised my ruthless efficiency. My message was brief. Wentworth Group's hiding assets offshore. Check their Cayman accounts. Ref. J. W. Emails dated April 2022. Attached were screenshots from James's iPad, anonymized to protect myself. Kessler's reply came as I left the palazzo. Appreciated. We'll take it from here. The Wentworths' financial house of cards was about to collapse, and I'd handed their enemy the match. My phone buzzed again, texts from Charlotte. You'll pay for this. Richard, this is actionable. Olivia. And Margaret, your pettiness proves you were never one of us. I ignored them, walking to a quiet piazza nearby. The Duomo loomed in the distance, its dome a testament to resilience. I'd spent 5 years trying to earn the Wentworths' approval, only to be erased for Claire and their crumbling empire. James's betrayal, Margaret's manipulation, the family's complicity. They'd underestimated me, assuming I'd crumble. Instead, I'd dismantled their stage. I booked a room at a boutique hotel, using Pinnacle's account, and packed my bags from the Savoy suite while James was still at the palazzo. The concierge, loyal to me after years of bookings, ensured my departure was discreet. By morning, I'd be on a flight to New York, leaving the Wentworths to their chaos. The palazzo dinner was just the beginning their social standing. Their finances, Their legacy were unraveling, and I'd lit the fuse. As I sipped a final espresso in the piazza, my anger gave way to clarity. I wasn't just walking away. I was reclaiming my power, and the Wentworths would never forget it. The summer haze settled over Manhattan as I sat in my new Tribeca apartment, a sleek one-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson. The view was a far cry from the Wentworths' Upper East Side townhouse, where I'd lived with James for 4 years. But this space was mine, paid for with Pinnacle Events profits. Not old money. 3 weeks ago, in Florence, I'd walked out of Margaret's 65th birthday dinner at Palazzo Corsini, where my seat was deliberately missing, a public humiliation orchestrated by James, Margaret, and their clan. Their laughter at James's "oops, we miscounted" had spurred my counterstrike. I canceled their week-long celebration palazzo, vineyard, yacht, villa, reversing Pinnacle's deposits and exposing their financial fragility. I'd also tipped off Daniel Kessler, a Wentworth rival, about their offshore accounts, setting their empire on a collision course with ruin. Now, back in New York, the fallout was reshaping my world, and I was ready to navigate it. The Florence debacle had spread like wildfire through elite circles. Social media buzzed with blurry photos of Margaret offering her pearl choker to cover the Palazzo's 25,000 bill, captioned with snarky comments about old money gone broke. Vendors. I'd canceled the Tuscan villa. The yacht captain gossiped to their networks, and Florence's hospitality scene whispered about the Wentworths' inability to pay. Margaret's attempt to spin it as a misunderstanding fell flat. Her society friends, who dined at the Palazzo, were already distancing themselves. My phone, on silent, was flooded with messages. Richard's legal threats, Charlotte's venomous insults, Margaret's imperious demands for an apology. I ignored them, focusing on Pinnacle's next big contract, a Met Gala pre-party for a tech mogul. Pinnacle Events was thriving despite the drama, or perhaps because of it. Clients who'd once seen me as James Wentworth's wife now praised my discretion and grit. A Vogue editor, whose wedding I'd planned, called to book me for a Paris Fashion Week event, saying, "You're the talk of the town, Olivia." That Florence move, ice cold. My inbox overflowed with inquiries, corporate launches, charity balls, even a Dubai Sheikh's anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. The Wentworths' attempt to erase me had made Pinnacle a hotter commodity. My team, led by my assistant, Lena, worked overtime to manage the surge, their loyalty a quiet anchor in the storm. Margaret, however, was waging a different war. At a Hamptons fundraiser, she'd told anyone who'd listen that I'd sabotaged her birthday out of petty jealousy, painting me as an unstable gold digger who couldn't handle their world. Her friends, Manhattan's old guard, spread the tale at country clubs and charity luncheons. A few clients wavered, asking Lena if the rumors were true, but most stood by me, citing years of flawless events. Lena, fierce and unflappable, fielded their calls. Olivia's the best in the business. The Wentworths, they're just loud. Her confidence, and the industry's trust, kept Pinnacle's reputation intact. James's reaction was more personal. A week after I returned, he showed up at my apartment, unannounced, his usual polish replaced by dark circles and a wrinkled blazer. I let him in, more curious than angry, and poured myself a coffee. He paced the living room, hands running through his hair. "Olivia, you've gone too far." He started, voice low. "Mother's a wreck. The board's panicking, clients are pulling funds after Florence. You need to fix this." I sat, crossing my arms. "Fix what?" "James, your affair with Claire. The baby due in March. Or the divorce papers you hid. planning to dump me at your mother's birthday." His jaw tightened. But he didn't deny it. I saw the texts. The offshore accounts. Margaret's note about Claire. "You thought I'd just disappear. I didn't. Now you're dealing with the consequences." He sank onto the couch, desperation creeping in. "The family's bleeding money. We're leveraged to the hilt properties. Funds. Everything. Florence was supposed to shore up investor confidence. Now it's a disaster. And Kessler's sniffing around our accounts. Sign an NDA. Olivia. Take a settlement, name your price. We'll keep it quiet. Protect your reputation." I laughed, sharp and cold. "Protect my reputation. Pinnacle's booked through next year. You're the ones scrambling. And I'm not signing anything. The truth's coming out. James. Whether you like it or not." His eyes narrowed, a flicker of the old arrogance. "You'll regret this. We have lawyers. Connections. You're still my wife. Our debts are yours. 2. Not when I have proof you hid assets to defraud me," I said, leaning forward. "My lawyer's already reviewing the documents. Try me. James." He left without another word. His shoulders slumped. A man watching his empire crack. The bombshell came 2 days later. An anonymous email arrived in my inbox, sent from a burner account titled Family Secrets 22. Attached were screenshots of Wentworth Group emails, internal memos about rerouting profits to a Cayman shell company, dated months before our Florence trip. One email, from Richard to James. Read. "Keep Olivia out of the loop. She's too nosy for her own good." Another, from Margaret, outlined post-divorce optics to reintroduce Claire. The sender's note was brief. "You deserve better. Use this." The writing style clipped, laced with resentment, pointed to Charlotte. Her jealousy of James, the golden son, had always simmered. She'd bristled at his inheritance of the company's reins. Now, it seemed, she'd turned traitor, handing me a weapon. I forwarded the emails to my lawyer, Rachel, a shark in stilettos who'd handled Pinnacle's contracts for years. "This is gold," she said over Zoom, her eyes gleaming. "It's not just divorce leverage, it's IRS bait. Offshore accounts, hidden assets. The feds will eat this up. And Charlotte's involvement, that's a family civil war waiting to happen." Rachel advised, holding the emails until we filed for divorce, maximizing their impact. "Let the Wentworths think they're safe," she said. "Then we strike." The rumors stung, though. At a Chelsea gallery opening, a former client whispered to her date, "That's Olivia Harper. Torched her in-laws' party in Italy. Unhinged." "Right?" I smiled, ignoring the jab. But it hurt to know Margaret's narrative was gaining traction. Lena, ever my defender, overheard and snapped. Unhinged. She outsmarted a family of snakes. Respect it. Her words, and the loyalty of my team, kept me grounded. Pinnacle's success was my shield, but the isolation was real friends I'd made through James stopped calling. Their allegiance to the Wentworths clear. One evening, I walked along the High Line, the city's lights a glittering reminder of my roots. I'd built Pinnacle from nothing, a Brooklyn kid who'd outworked everyone. The Wentworths had tried to reduce me to a footnote, but their betrayal had only sharpened my resolve. James's plea, Margaret's lies, Charlotte's betrayal, they were cracks in their facade. And I was the earthquake. With Rachel's plan and Charlotte's emails, I was poised to dismantle their legacy. As I watched the Hudson reflect the skyline, I knew the fallout was just the beginning. The real fight was coming, and I was ready to win. The August heat clung to Manhattan's streets. But inside my Tribeca apartment, the air was cool, the Hudson River sparkling beyond my windows. My laptop glowed with emails from Pinnacle Events clients' contracts for a Paris Fashion Week gala, a Dubai royal anniversary, a MoMA fundraiser proof my business was soaring. 2 months ago, in Florence, I dismantled the Wentworth's plan to humiliate me at Margaret's 65th birthday dinner, where my seat was deliberately missing. Their laughter at James's oops we miscounted had fueled my retaliation. I canceled their week-long celebration, tipped off their rival Daniel Kessler about offshore accounts, and returned to New York with their secrets. Margaret's rumors painted me as a jealous saboteur, but Charlotte's anonymous emails, exposing the family's hidden assets, had given me an arsenal. Now, with my lawyer Rachel, I was ready to strike back and bury the Wentworth empire. Rachel's office, a glass-walled perch in Midtown, was our command center. She'd spent weeks analyzing the documents I'd gathered, James's iPad screenshots, Charlotte's leaked emails, bank statements showing Cayman transfers. "This isn't just a divorce case," she said, her pen tapping a stack of printouts. "It's a federal one. The IRS loves offshore evasion, and the SEC will jump on Wentworth Group's cooked books. Charlotte's emails are the cherry on top, internal admissions of fraud. Straight from Richard's keyboard," she smirked. "You've got them by the throat, Olivia." I nodded, my resolve ironclad. "What's the play? I want them to feel this, but I don't want Pinnacle dragged into their mess." Rachel outlined the strategy. We'd file for divorce, citing James's infidelity and financial deception, and simultaneously send anonymized documents to the IRS and SEC, flagged for public interest. Charlotte's emails, stripped of her burner account details, would be the centerpiece, proving the Wentworths hid assets to dodge creditors and taxes. "We'll let the feds do the heavy lifting," Rachel said. "By the time they're done, Wentworth Group will be a cautionary tale." The counterstrike hit in mid-August. Rachel sent the documents through a secure third-party tip line, ensuring my anonymity. Days later, the Wall Street Journal published a bombshell. Wentworth Group faces federal probes over offshore accounts. The article detailed suspicious transfers to Cayman shells, citing internal communications that matched Charlotte's leaks. It named Richard's aggressive restructuring and James's questionable oversight, hinting at SEC scrutiny. The stock market reacted swiftly. Wentworth Group's shares, already shaky, plummeted 30% in a week. Clients pulled funds, and 2 board members resigned, citing governance concerns. The article didn't mention me, but industry whispers connected the dots. Pinnacle's star was rising as the Wentworths fell. Margaret's social empire crumbled in tandem. Her position on the Metropolitan Museum's board, a crown jewel of Manhattan's elite, was revoked after donors questioned her financial integrity. Invitations to Hampton's galas and charity luncheons dried up. Her friends, once loyal, ghosted her to avoid the scandal's taint. Charlotte, unaware her emails had fueled the fire, tried to capitalize on the chaos, pitching herself as the stable Wentworth to investors. But her own complicity CC'd on several damning memos surfaced in follow-up reports, tarnishing her ambitions. Thomas and Elise, usually aloof, retreated to their Connecticut estate, dodging reporters camped outside the Wentworth townhouse. The unexpected twist came from Claire. I'd assumed she and James were planning their future, with Margaret's blessing and a baby on the way. But a week after the journal article, Lena forwarded me a page 6 gossip item. Claire Langley, spotted solo. At Bergdorf's, no ring in sight. Sources claimed Claire, ever pragmatic, had ended her affair with James, unwilling to tie herself to a sinking ship. Her family, old money with a nose for survival, reportedly pushed her to cut losses after the Wentworths' financial woes went public. James, once the golden heir, was now toxic, a man with no empire, no allies, and a child Claire seemed content to raise alone. James's desperation peaked in late August. He showed up at Pinnacle's Soho office, bypassing Lena's protests to barge into my meeting room. I was reviewing mood boards for a client's yacht party, my team scattered with coffee cups and iPads. James looked haggard, tie loose, eyes bloodshot, the polish of privilege gone. "Olivia, we need to talk," he said, ignoring my team's stares. I dismissed them, keeping Lena nearby, her phone discreetly recording. "You've destroyed us," James started, pacing. "The SEC's freezing our accounts. Creditors are circling. Mother's been blackballed. Claire left me because of this mess. You have to stop this. Olivia, hand over whatever you gave Kessler. Sign the NDA. I'll pay you. Whatever you want." I leaned back, unflinched. "You're not in a position to offer anything, James. I didn't give Kessler the documents your family's greed did. Offshore accounts, divorce scripts. You and Margaret planned my exit. But you forgot who I am. Pinnacle's thriving, and I'm not signing your gag order." His voice cracked, a mix of fury and fear. "You're still my wife. If we go down, you're tied to this debt, lawsuits, everything." I smiled, cold and steady. "Rachel's got proof you hid assets to defraud me. The IRS knows it. Too. Try dragging me down, and you'll sink faster." He froze, realizing his bluff was empty. Lena escorted him out, her glare sharper than any security guards. Pinnacle's success was my armor. The MoMA fundraiser, executed flawlessly, earned a New York Times style section feature, praising Olivia Harper's unmatched vision. Clients who'd wavered during Margaret's smear campaign doubled down, booking me for events through 2023. Lena and my team became my chosen family. Their late-night brainstorming sessions a reminder of what loyalty looked like. But the personal toll was real. At a meatpacking district bar, a former Wentworth friend, now distant, whispered to her date, "That's Olivia." Blew up her marriage for attention. I sipped my martini, ignoring the sting, but it underscored how deeply Margaret's lies had cut. Rachel kept me focused. "The IRS is moving fast," she reported. "They've subpoenaed Wentworth Group's records, and the SEC's sniffing for insider trading." Charlotte's emails were the spark, but their whole operation's a tinderbox. She advised prepping for divorce court, where we'd use James's infidelity and fraud to secure my assets. Pinnacle, my savings, my Tribeca lease. The Wentworths' legal team, once formidable, was stretched thin, distracted by federal probes. One evening, I walked through Washington Square Park, the arch glowing under twilight. The city pulsed with possibility. A stark contrast to the Wentworths' unraveling world, James's betrayal, Margaret's cruelty, Charlotte's treachery. They'd tried to break me, but they'd only sharpened my edge. Claire's exit was the final blow to their plan, proof their dynasty was built on sand. With Rachel's strategy and Pinnacle's rise, I was rewriting my story, not as a scorned wife, but as a woman who'd turned their game against them. The counterstrike was working, and the Wentworths were learning what it cost to underestimate me. Winter's bite sharpened Manhattan's edges, but my Tribeca apartment glowed with warmth, fairy lights twinkling along the windows overlooking the Hudson. Pinnacle Events was at its peak, with contracts for a Paris Fashion Week gala, a Dubai Royal Anniversary, and a Whitney Museum fundraiser filling my calendar. 4 months ago, in Florence, I'd turned the Wentworths' plan to humiliate me at Margaret's 65th birthday dinner, where my seat was missing into their undoing. I'd canceled their week-long celebration, tipped off their rival Daniel Kessler about offshore accounts, and leveraged Charlotte's leaked emails to spark IRS and SEC probes. The Wall Street Journal expose had gutted Wentworth Group. Claire had ditched James, and Margaret's social empire had crumbled. Now, as snow dusted the city, I was reclaiming my life, piece by hard-won piece. The divorce proceedings were my battleground. Rachel, my lawyer, had filed in September, citing James's infidelity with Claire and his attempt to defraud me by hiding assets. The Wentworth's legal team, once a juggernaut, was hobbled by federal investigations. Rachel presented a damning case. James's texts with Claire, divorce papers from his briefcase, bank statements showing Cayman transfers, and Charlotte's emails admitting to creative accounting. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with a reputation for hating deceit, ruled in my favor. I kept Pinnacle events, my Tribeca lease, my personal savings, and even the sapphire Oscar de la Renta gown from Florence, every cent earned by my hustle. I refused any Wentworth money, wanting no ties to their tainted legacy. James, ordered to cover my legal fees, left the courtroom ashen, his arrogance stripped bare. Margaret's retaliation was predictable but sloppy. In October, she'd filed a defamation lawsuit against me, claiming my malicious actions in Florence had ruined her reputation. She spun her narrative at society lunches, calling me a vindictive opportunist who'd fabricated the family's financial woes. Her allies, dwindling but loyal, amplified the story in private clubs and charity circles. The lawsuit demanded $5 million in damages, a desperate bid to intimidate me into silence. Rachel laughed when she read the filing. "It's a Hail Mary," she said. "Margaret's got no evidence." And her own emails, courtesy of Charlotte, prove she planned your humiliation. This won't last a month. The turning point came unexpectedly. In November, I received a package at Pinnacle's Soho office, delivered anonymously but postmarked from Manhattan. Inside was a USB drive with a note. "You showed them what strength looks like. Use this to finish it." The drive contained internal Wentworth Group emails, dated a year prior, detailing Margaret's instructions to minimize Olivia's role in family events and prepare for Claire's return. One email, from Margaret to Richard, gloated. "Once James announces the divorce, Olivia's little company will collapse without our contracts." Another thread showed Margaret directing the Florence seating plan, explicitly omitting my chair. The sender's identity clicked when I noticed a CC'd address. Emily, a former Wentworth Group assistant I'd helped with a charity event years ago. Grateful for my kindness and fed up with Margaret's cruelty, she'd turned whistleblower. Rachel pounced. She subpoenaed Emily, who testified remotely, confirming the email's authenticity and Margaret's vendetta against me. The defamation lawsuit collapsed in a single hearing, the judge slamming Margaret for orchestrating a public smear while feigning victimhood. Margaret was ordered to pay my legal costs, a $50,000 hit that stung more than the money she'd lost, face in a city where reputation was currency. Emily's emails also reached the IRS, fueling their case against Wentworth Group for tax evasion. Rachel grinned over coffee. "Emily's your guardian angel." Olivia. Margaret's done. Pinnacle events soared higher. The Whitney fundraiser, a black tie affair with A-list attendees, earned a Vogue feature, lauding Olivia Harper's impeccable touch. Clients who'd hesitated during Margaret's smear campaign now begged for bookings, citing my unbreakable spirit. I signed contracts for Paris and Dubai, expanding Pinnacle's reach globally. Lena, my assistant, became my right hand, her sharp wit and loyalty anchoring our team. We hired 3 new planners to handle the demand, turning our Soho office into a buzzing hive of creativity. At a team dinner, Lena raised a glass to Olivia, who turned a missing chair into a throne. The cheers drowned out the lingering echoes of Margaret's lies. The Wentworth's downfall was relentless. The IRS seized Wentworth Group's Manhattan headquarters, a glassy tower once their crown jewel, after audits uncovered $20 million in unreported offshore profits. The SEC charged Richard and James with insider trading, tied to a shady stock dump before the Journal expose. Charlotte, hoping to salvage her own ambitions, pitched herself as the company's new face. But her role in the email leaks now. Public made her radioactive to investors. Thomas and Elise fled to London, dodging the scandal's fallout. Margaret, stripped of her Met Board seat, canceled her annual Southampton gala. A first in decades. Page 6 reported her selling a Sagaponic estate to cover legal bills. A humiliating retreat for a woman who'd lived for appearances. James was a shadow of himself. Claire's departure had gutted him, and the loss of Wentworth Group's clout left him adrift. He texted me once, a late-night plea. "I never meant for this. Olivia, can we talk?" I didn't respond. His affair, his lies, his family's cruelty, they'd burned any bridge we'd had. Claire, now visibly pregnant, was spotted at a Soho House event, her family's wealth insulating her from the Wentworth's collapse. Rumors swirled she'd named another man as the baby's father, erasing James entirely. His isolation was poetic justice, a man undone by the empire he'd betrayed me for. The personal toll lingered. At a Lincoln Center gala, a Wentworth ally whispered to her friend, "Olivia's ruthless, destroyed a family for fame." I smiled, sipping champagne, but the words stung. My old life dinners at the townhouse, James's laughter, even Margaret's grudging compliments was gone, replaced by a hard-earned solitude. Lena and my team filled the void. Their late-night pizza runs and brainstorming sessions, a new kind of family. Rachel, too, became a confidant. Her fierce belief in my case, a reminder I wasn't alone. One snowy evening, I walked through Central Park. The Bethesda fountain dusted white. The city's hum felt like a heartbeat, syncing with my own. I'd reclaimed pinnacles, my dignity, my future. But the cost was etched in me, trust shattered. Years lost to a family that never saw my worth. Emily's gift, Rachel's strategy, and Pinnacle's rise had turned their weapons against them. The Wentworths were crumbling, but I was building, brick by brick. As I watched snowflakes melt on my coat, I knew the final chapter was coming, not just their end, but my beginning. The Manhattan skyline sparkled through the January frost, a glittering backdrop to my Tribeca loft, now a haven of minimalist elegance. Pinnacle Events had transcended its New York roots, with offices in Paris and Dubai and a client list that read like a global who's who. A year ago, in Florence, I'd dismantled the Wentworth's plan to erase me at Margaret's 65th birthday dinner, where my missing seat was their final insult. I'd canceled their lavish celebration, exposed their offshore accounts to rival Daniel Kessler, and used Charlotte's leaked emails to spark IRS and SEC probes. The Wall Street Journal expose had toppled Wentworth Group. Claire had abandoned James, and Margaret's social empire had crumbled. Emily's whistleblower emails had crushed Margaret's defamation suit, securing my divorce and my freedom. Now, as I stood on my balcony, the Hudson reflecting the city's pulse, I was writing a new chapter, one where I defined family, success, and my own worth. The Wentworth's collapse was complete. Wentworth Group declared bankruptcy in March 2023. Its Manhattan headquarters sold to a tech startup for a fraction of its value. The IRS, armed with Charlotte's emails and Emily's leaks, fined the company $30 million for tax evasion. While the SEC barred Richard and James from corporate leadership for a decade, Margaret and Richard retreated to a modest condo in Westchester. Their Sagaponic estate and Upper East Side townhouse auctioned to cover debts. Margaret's name vanished from society pages. Her former allies, Manhattan's elite, shunned her, their loyalty as fleeting as her wealth. Charlotte, tainted by her own leaked emails, failed to salvage the company, moving to Miami to chase a dubious influencer career. Thomas and Elise remained in London, their silence a tacit surrender. James was a ghost of his former self. Claire's departure, coupled with the loss of his inheritance, left him untethered. Page 6 reported him working as a consultant for a second-rate real estate firm, his charm useless without the Wentworth name. Claire, now raising her daughter with a hedge fund scion, had erased James from her narrative, her family's wealth shielding her from the scandal. James sent me one email in July 2023. A rambling apology. I underestimated you. Olivia. I'm sorry for everything. I deleted it. His words as empty as the promises he'd broken. The man who'd laughed at my missing seat was gone, replaced by a cautionary tale of hubris. Pinnacle Events was my triumph. The Paris Fashion Week Gala, a star-studded affair for a couture house, earned a Harper's Bazaar cover, cementing my global reputation. The Dubai Royal Anniversary, with fireworks over the Burj Khalifa, drew 500 inquiries for Pinnacle's services. Back home, the Whitney fundraiser success led to a MoMA board invitation, a seat Margaret had once coveted. Lena, my assistant-turned-partner, ran our Soho office with fierce precision, while our new hires, a diverse crew of planners, brought fresh energy. Pinnacle's revenue tripled, and our brand was synonymous with elegance and resilience. The unexpected breakthrough came in October 2023. At a tech conference in San Francisco, I pitched Pinnacle Plan, a mobile app I developed with a startup incubator. The app streamlined event planning vendor contracts, guest lists, budgets with AI-driven logistics and a sleek interface. Investors, impressed by Pinnacle's track record and my Florence Story Now industry legend, poured $10 million into the launch. By December, Forbes named Pinnacle Plan one of 2023's hottest startups, valuing it at $50 million. The app wasn't just a tool, it was my legacy, proof that my vision could reshape an industry. Lena, grinning at the launch party, said, "You didn't just beat the Wentworths. Olivia, you built an empire they'll never touch." The personal scars lingered, though, at a Chelsea art opening, a former Wentworth friend whispered, "She's the one who tanked her in-laws." Ruthless. I smiled, sipping Prosecco, but the judgment stung. My old life. James's rooftop dinners. Margaret's grudging nods was a distant memory, replaced by a solitude I'd learned to embrace. Lena, Rachel, and Emily became my chosen family, their support unwavering. Rachel, over sushi after the divorce, had toasted me. "You didn't just win." Olivia, you redefined winning. Emily, now a freelance consultant, emailed me updates, her gratitude for my strength a quiet bond. Margaret's final gambit came in November 2023. She pitched a comeback fundraiser to a minor charity, hoping to reclaim her social throne. When they approached Pinnacle for planning, I declined politely, citing a full schedule. The event, poorly executed by a cut-rate planner, flopped, earning a scathing New York Post review. Margaret Wentworth's sad encore. Her defeat was final. A woman undone by her own cruelty. I felt no vindication, only relief she was no longer my burden. One January evening, I hosted a dinner at my loft. The table set with candles and my grandmother's china, a nod to my Brooklyn roots. Lena, Rachel, Emily, and my old college friend Maya gathered, their laughter filling the space. The menu truffle ravioli, tiramisu. Barolo was a tribute to Florence, where I'd reclaimed my power. Over dessert, Lena raised her glass. To Olivia, who turned a missing seat into a global stage, Rachel added. And to family, the ones we choose. Emily, shy but earnest, said, "You showed me what courage looks like." Maya, who'd known me before the Wentworths, squeezed my hand. "You're home. Live." The night ended with plans a team retreat in Tulum, a Paris trip for Fashion Week, a coding boot camp to scale Pinnacle Plan. My loft, once a refuge, was now a hub of possibility. Its walls lined with photos of Pinnacle's triumphs, the Dubai fireworks, the Paris runway, the Whitney's glowing atrium. The Wentworths had tried to make me small, a footnote in their dynasty. But their betrayal had freed me. James's laughter, Margaret's scheming, Charlotte's treachery, they'd been the crucibles, forging a woman who built instead of broke. A week later, I flew to Venice for a royal wedding, Pinnacle's most ambitious project yet. The ceremony, in a 16th century palazzo, was a masterpiece: orchid arches, a gondola procession, a menu blending Venetian and royal cuisines. Vogue called it the wedding of the decade, naming me the architect of modern elegance. Standing on the palazzo's balcony, the Grand Canal shimmering below, I felt no trace of the woman who'd stood in Florence. Humiliated but unbroken, the missing seat had been my catalyst. Proof I belonged not at their table, but at one I'd built myself. Back in New York, I walked through Soho, snow crunching under my boots. The city's energy mirrored my own, a relentless drive to create, to thrive. Pinnacle Plan's valuation hit $75 million, with talks of a public offering. My team, my friends, my vision, they were my family now. Bound by respect, not blood. The Wentworths were a fading echo, their empire dust, while mine was rising. As I passed a newsstand, a headline caught my eye. Wentworth heir spotted at dive bar. Alone. I kept walking, the past behind me, the future mine to shape.